On the night I opened my dream restaurant, I set out 20 tables, lit every candle, and waited for the people I loved most. Not a single one came. They were all at my brother's party instead. That was the night I learned something brutal. Sometimes family doesn't just let you down, they erase you. But I didn't cry. I rewrote the rules. And what I did next? Well, it changed everything. Welcome to Revenge Story Time, the place where betrayal turns into power and every scar has a story. If you've ever been ignored, underestimated, or pushed aside by the very people who are supposed to stand by you, then you're in the right place. Before we begin, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit that subscribe button, and get ready because this story will prove that sometimes the sweetest revenge is success. My name is Clara Hayes. I'm 34 years old, and the night I learned the truth about my family wasn't during a fight or a holiday or even a funeral. It was the night I opened the doors to my dream. I had spent 2 years planning my restaurant. 2 years of sleepless nights, burned fingertips, endless loan applications, and recipes tested until I hated the smell of my own kitchen. But finally, it was here. The grand opening. The lights were low and golden, the kind that makes every plate look like art. I'd folded napkins into careful shapes, handwritten every menu card in looping ink, and even built a playlist of songs that reminded me of home songs Mom used to hum while cooking, songs Dad used to whistle when he thought no one was listening. And yet, as the minutes ticked by, my family's chairs stayed empty. Not one of them walked through those doors. Instead, my phone buzzed with a notification that made my stomach twist. A photo on Adrian's Instagram story, my older brother. He was celebrating his big job promotion, a backyard barbecue. Plastic chairs, cheap balloons, everyone was there. My parents, cousins, even my aunt who lived 2 towns over. They were all laughing in the background, holding a cake with frosting that read "to bigger things." I was standing in my dining room, staring at untouched tables while the people I loved most were cheering for him. I tried to tell myself maybe they'd come later. Maybe they wanted to surprise me, but an hour passed, then 2. My playlist looped again, this time sounding hollow against the silence. The rosemary and garlic I'd roasted into the air clung to me like shame. Finally, just before midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Instagram, it was a text. From Dad, Victor Hayes. We need to discuss the restaurant. No apology. No sorry we couldn't make it. No we'll come tomorrow. Just business. My chest tightened. I knew exactly what he meant. He wasn't worried about me, he was worried about the money. The family tab. The discount he assumed he'd always get just for sharing my last name. I stared at the message, my reflection ghosted against the screen. And then I typed the words that would change everything. Effective immediately, the restaurant is closed to all family. No reservations, no discounts, no exceptions. I hit send. 20 minutes later, my phone blew up 19 missed calls. Half from Mom, half from Adrian. Then came the knock at the back door. Of course, it was Adrian. He stood there in his tailored blazer, smelling of too much cologne and not enough guilt. In his hand, a half-eaten cake box from the party. Figured you'd want a slice, he said, smiling like nothing had happened. I didn't move. Didn't answer. Look, Clara. He tried again, his voice slipping into the casual tone he always used when he wanted to smooth things over. We didn't think it was that big of a deal. Dad said it was just soft launch vibes, you know? Trial run. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. The night air was cold, and I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips. You went to his party, Adrian. Not mine. I hand-delivered invitations. I texted Mom 3 times. I made your favorite lemon tart. It sat untouched for 5 hours. He looked down at the cake box, suddenly less sure of himself. People got busy. No, I said, my voice sharp but quiet. People got lazy. They thought I'd always be the backup plan. I tossed the trash bag in my hand into the dumpster and walked past him. My chest was burning, but not from the cold. From years of being dismissed as the artsy one, years of mom comparing my dream to Adrian's real job. They wanted me small so they wouldn't have to explain me. Adrian followed, his shoes crunching on the gravel. Clara, come on. It's not that deep. But it was. It had always been that deep. He hesitated, then said the one thing that revealed the truth. I think Dad wants to invest now. He asked me to talk to you. He sees potential. There it was. Not guilt. Not support. Business. Always business. I turned to face him, calm as stone. Tell Dad the restaurant's fully funded. My investor already bought exclusive rights to my loyalty. Adrian blinked. What does that even mean? I smiled. It means you're late. And I don't do leftovers. I walked back inside and locked the door behind me. On the other side, I could hear him breathing, then footsteps fading away. That night, as I sat in the darkened dining room, surrounded by untouched plates and folded napkins, I realized something sharp and clear. For years, I thought saying yes made me loved. That giving away my time, my space, my car, my couch meant they'd value me. But love doesn't know show on the most important night of your life. So, I made a promise. No more discounts, no more walk-ins, even if we share DNA. The next morning, I printed a sign and taped it to the glass door. Dear customers, due to overwhelming support, we are transitioning to reservations only. No walk-ins accepted, even if we share DNA by noon. The photo was already on local food blogs. By evening, it had gone viral. And that's when things really began to unravel. By the time the sign on my restaurant door had made its way across the internet, I had stopped checking my phone. My notifications were out of control, hundreds of comments, tags, reposts. Strangers were calling me a hero. Boundaries taste better than betrayal. Tell Adrian to choke on humble pie. Finally, someone said what we're all too scared to. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt exhausted. But as I scrolled through the comments, something inside me shifted. Maybe I didn't need my family's applause. Maybe the world outside those bloodlines had been waiting to clap for me all along. By late afternoon, Mom Elaine Hayes called 5 times, leaving one voicemail I couldn't ignore. Clara, this is childish. We're family. We made a mistake, but you airing it like this is making things worse. Her voice cracked on the last word, but I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the front door for a couple who had driven in from another state. The woman smiled, clutching her partner's hand. We canceled our other reservation just to eat here. We saw you online. As I seated them, I caught my reflection in the window. I didn't look bitter. I didn't look angry. I looked free. But freedom doesn't come without a fight. 2 days later, Dad showed up. Not at the restaurant. He didn't want cameras catching him, but at my apartment. I watched him through the peephole first. Suit jacket slightly wrinkled, eyes tired, posture stiff. Clara, he said when I opened the door but didn't step aside, let's be adults about this. I crossed my arms. Talk here. He sighed. This is ridiculous. We're not enemies. No, I said. You're just people who forget I exist unless I'm paying or cooking. He flinched but kept his voice low. I was going to help you. I was looking into financing. You mean you wanted equity? I shot back. Control. His jaw tightened. Don't be paranoid. I reached behind me and pulled out a manila envelope I'd been saving for this exact moment. Here's the deed. The restaurant is solely mine. The LLC, the recipes, every detail protected. He blinked. You got a lawyer? I smiled faintly. I got a team. Funny what happens when you stop waiting for permission to shine. His silence said more than words. Finally he muttered, You're burning bridges, Clara. This will come back to bite you. Then I'll learn to swim. I replied, and closed the door. That was supposed to be the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. 3 nights later, I noticed the first bad Yelp review. Then another. Then 6 more, all within an hour. Food was cold. Staff was rude. Owner glared at us like we didn't belong. Only problem? None of those names matched my reservation log. And we never served cold food. I remembered Adrian's last message, the one I'd ignored. They're planning something. Be careful. A smear campaign. Most people would panic. I prepared. First, I called my lawyer. Then, I reached out to one of my regulars, Maya Chan, a journalist who had once written a glowing feature titled, "The Restaurant with a Soul." After I showed her the fake reviews, she frowned. "Looks targeted. You want to go on record?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. By the next morning, the article was live, beneath the apron strings. How a rising star chef fought back against family sabotage. It wasn't revenge, it was truth. The piece included screenshots, contradictions, dates, evidence that exposed what my family had tried to bury. Even one of my waitresses gave a statement, saying Dad had come in and threatened to buy out my lease if I didn't come to my senses. By noon, the story had legs. Imagine being this threatened by your daughter's success. She's not the black sheep. She's the phoenix. Families like this create warriors. That night, a woman came into the restaurant alone, ordered nothing, and quietly placed a $1,000 tip on the counter. "For standing up," she whispered before leaving. I cried in the walk-in fridge, not from weakness, but from relief. Because for the first time, the world saw what they'd done, and they chose me. But the next move wasn't mine. It came in the form of a quiet knock during closing hours. I opened the door to see Sophia laying Adrian's Svianza. Her eyes were rimmed red, her voice fragile. "Clara, can I talk to you?" "Please, just a minute." I almost told her to leave, but something in her eyes stopped me. Guilt. Maybe fear. She sat in the last booth, hands tied around a coffee cup I hadn't poured. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know how far they were going." I said nothing. "They created a WhatsApp group," she continued. "Your mom, your dad, Adrian, your Aunt Linda, even cousin Mark. They called it Project Reset. The plan was to push you into selling. Or failing." She slid her phone across the table. "Screenshots, voice notes, proof. Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice steady. Sophia's throat worked as she swallowed. "Because they dragged me into it. And because I don't want to marry someone who treats his sister like this." I stared at the messages glowing on her screen. Their voices. Their words. Their plan. Sophia whispered, "If you want to go public, you have my blessing." I didn't answer. Not yet. Because revenge isn't about noise. It's about timing. And with what she'd just given me, I finally had everything I needed. Everything. To burn the mask right off them. I didn't sleep that night. Sophia's phone sat on my counter like a live grenade. Every screenshot, every voice memo, every whisper of their scheme, it was all there. My parents, Adrian, even distant relatives who hadn't texted me in years, all united under one mission: erase Clara Hayes. For hours I just stared at the evidence. My hands itched to release it, but a voice inside me said, "Not yet. Not until the whole world is watching." So I waited. The opportunity came faster than expected. A local TV station reached out after Maya's article, asking if I'd do a live segment about standing strong in the face of family betrayal. My first instinct was to say no, I wasn't after fame. But then I remembered Dad's warning. This will come back to bite you. Fine, let it bite. On the day of the interview, I walked into the studio with the calm of someone carrying a secret weapon. Lights, cameras, a polite host with a bright smile. "So Clara," she began, "viewers are calling you the voice of independence. What do you want to say to people who feel betrayed by their families?" I looked straight into the camera, into the eyes of every person who had ever been silenced. "Sometimes," I said evenly, "family isn't blood. It's anyone who chooses to stand with you when others try to tear you down. And sometimes you have to defend yourself even against the people who share your last name." The host blinked, sensing weight behind my words. That's when I pulled out the folder. Printed screenshots, transcripts, voice notes. I slid them across the table. These, I said, are records of a coordinated effort by my parents, my brother, and others. To sabotage my livelihood, to shut down my restaurant, to make me disappear. The host's eyes widened. And you're willing to go public with this? I already am, I said. The control room scrambled. Producers leaned forward. The broadcast delay wasn't long enough to cut me off. By the time the segment ended, my story was everywhere. The fallout was instant. Within hours, hashtags trended. Hashtag stand with Clara, hashtag project reset exposed, hashtag family DOESNT control Adrian's inbox leaked next. Screenshots of him mocking me in group chats, bragging about how easy it would be to break the sheep. He tried to claim hacking. But Sophia, brave enough to go on record now, stood by her testimony. Wedding cancelled. Sponsors pulled out of Dad's charity gala. Mom resigned from her board position after the press storm. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't throw a party. I went to work. I cooked. But when strangers lined up outside my restaurant, people I'd never met, people holding signs that read, "Boundaries build freedom," I realized revenge didn't have to look like fire. Sometimes it looked like thriving in plain sight while your enemies choked on the ashes of their lies. 2 weeks later, Adrian showed up at the restaurant, alone. No cameras, no parents, no entourage. He stood at the doorway, hands shoved into his pockets. His voice was small. I lost everything, Clara. I set down the tray I was carrying. You tried to make me lose everything first. His jaw clenched, but then he broke. Shoulders sagged, eyes wet. I didn't think you'd fight back. You never did before. That was your mistake, I said. He nodded slowly, as if realizing the truth too late. Guess we're not family anymore. I took a deep breath, then said what had been burning in my chest for years. Family doesn't betray you for sport. Family doesn't cheer when you fail. So no, Adrian, we're not. He left without another word. And in that silence, I felt lighter than I ever had. Months passed. The restaurant flourished, not because of the drama, but because the food was good. The walls were honest, and I finally stopped begging for love that was never coming. One night, after closing, I sat alone in the last booth with a cup of tea. The sign I'd once taped to my door hung framed on the wall now. Boundaries taste better than betrayal. I traced the words with my eyes and smiled. Because this wasn't just revenge, it was rebirth. And as the lights dimmed and I locked the door, I whispered to myself, half a promise, half a prayer. They thought they buried me. They didn't know I was a seed. Thanks for watching Revenge Storytime. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of betrayal and payback. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and I'll see you in the next story.